Rob, welcome to the SAINTCON hallway. How's your con been going?
That's been good. SAINTCON's good every year. I really enjoy coming here.
What was your favorite thing that you did or accomplished or went and did? Maybe it's part of the con or around the con or people around the con?
It's definitely the people around the con. If we've had a couple of years of pandemic, conferences canceled, things like that, it's good to see people again and actually realize that real people exist still.
I was getting a little worried that you didn't exist still. I haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah, I kind of disappeared a little bit with COVID. I did a little bit of a career change, started a new position, been working from home, and been a little isolated, but I'm out again.
We should chat about that. What's the career change? What you doing?
I've gone back to industry. I left academia. I am now working as a enterprise security architect for a niche manufacturing firm that you've never heard of, but it's really interesting work.
Loving it?
Yeah. I've got the opportunity to build a security program basically from the ground up and, have the green light to do whatever needs to be done. And, of course, that green light we always have, right? But then they're like, whoa, that costs a lot of money.
Right.
And so it's like, could you do all the awesome stuff for a little bit less money? But I'm doing stuff, information security roadmaps, reference security architecture, all of that sort of thing.
You're checking all the boxes.
So many boxes. Although we're trying to move from a compliance-based approach to a risk-based approach, because previous to the arrival of me and some of our other InfoSec leadership, it was very much compliance-based. Check the boxes for whatever things.
It's always nice when people are improving their security posture before the golden shovel scenario. Have you heard of the golden shovel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're lucky in this case that the company made some good decisions before I got there, and since then we've been able to kind of leverage those, but there wasn't a good strategy, and that's really what we're doing right now is we're taking that strategy and building that strategy and taking the existing tools we have and then kind of integrating everything, because we're a multinational, we have different business units, we have all kinds of disparate stuff that's not really ever been planned out strategically. It's just been kind of, we're putting this here, we have this here.
Right.
And we're really spending a bunch of time doing the how do we make this all make sense and scale? Because that's really the question is, it's easy to do security in small things, but when you're talking about multinational and you're talking about, we mentioned compliance, when you've got regulation for your GDPR, the California privacy laws, Asia, all of these things, you really have to have something that scales well. And that's a challenge because it's super easy to comply with, you've got an office in Texas and you only have to deal with that. But when you add California, Europe, Israel, Asia, it becomes so much more and so many disparate systems that it's really difficult to kind of unite everything. And that's the challenge that I'm enjoying right now is how do I make it all work together? Right.
Sounds like you'll be busy for a while there.
I just finished a 3-year roadmap, and that 3-year roadmap really is something that's going to take a while to...
3 years.
Yeah. Well, it was actually started as a 5-year roadmap, and then they're like, whoa. And I'm like 5 years is kind of out there, and that's one of the challenges of doing architecture is sometimes you're predicting where things are, and since we're in manufacturing...
Things move.
We're talking Industry 4.0, we're talking convergence of IT and OT, and those sort of things get, really, really messy because suddenly you're like, we want to connect these robots to the cloud so we can do business analytics as we measure these, micrometer depths that they're working at, and we want to do business analytics to see which one of those does the best whatever, and you're like, yeah, that's cool. They're like, and you need to secure it. Yeah. And that's where it comes in.
I gave it a public IP address. Can you go ahead and secure this?
I will have a talk at an upcoming conference about public IP addresses at some point.
Oh, you worked academia. You know well about giving everything a public IP address.
Yes. I can tell you that I have, being back in industry, I have seen some things that I did not think I would see again. So it's been...
why is Telnet open here? Yeah.
I have a feeling that you may have actually seen some of my work.
It's every org, man. It's every single org.
Well, and one of the things is, you have these AS400s that are out there doing whatever, and somebody's connecting to it via Telnet on a Windows SP3 box that can't be updated because it controls some piece of OT.
Yeah, it's been making some dinosaur mold for the last 30 years, and there's no way to change that.
Exactly. It's like, well, if we patch it, it breaks, and it's like,
or it's cost prohibitive, or
or you tell them, but it's over MPLS, so it's okay. It's like, no, that's not okay.
It's SNMP1.
And so one of the things that you find is there's a lot of situations where you have not necessarily security issues, but you just have technological debt that's been acquired for how many years of debt, putting off upgrades,
risk, as you were
shifting
saying,
stuff around, and so you end up with these problems that aren't necessarily security, but they start leaning towards security just because you have all of this old infrastructure, you have all of these things that haven't been patched, you haven't updated, and so we're really, trying to refresh all of that at the same time making it all secure, and that's a challenge because you have the IT needs and then you have the security needs, and
dollar signs.
It's all dollar signs. And the trick is how to do it so that there's a good ROI and that everybody doesn't go.
Yeah. Oh, how do we make this OpEx instead of CapEx? Yeah.
You have no idea how much of my job is OpEx versus CapEx.
Yeah, we need consistent budgets here. We don't need millions of dollars once. Yeah.
That's my life. It's like you've been following me around. Yeah. All of the OpEx, the CapEx stuff, and and when you start getting all these services and managed services and SaaS offerings and all of these things, you end up with it's like, well, this is all OpEx. This is good. It's not CapEx.
Yeah.
But then you start
add it all together.
Then exactly, you add it all together.
Maybe you want to go back to OpEx.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like when you've got the with cloud things. I mean, we talk about that and you go, oh, you're going to save so much money in the cloud, and then when you actually look at what you're spending on, by the time you put together AWS, Azure, everything, Google Compute, it's like,
right.
Ooh.
It seemed reasonable until I had to pay the transit costs in and out.
Yeah. I put all my data in the cloud. It was free to go in.
Yeah. Now I'd like to access it. Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we want to move all of it somewhere, and so the cost is always an issue, and that's always going to be an issue.
Yep.
But I think that we're lucky in that boards, executives are now kind of seeing the cost of not doing security.
Right.
And so it's kind of balancing that, how much do we want to pay versus the risk? And ultimately it's a business decision.
Yeah, but glad they're actually thinking of it and empowering Intel versus needing a compelling event to do so.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and we're benefiting from other people's compelling events.
Yes, that's fair.
That's one of the things is that we see these other events, that these big breaches, and especially when you have people who are officers of the company that are now liable for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They go, whoa, cybersecurity dude, what do you think about this? And now you go,
that could be a problem.
Let's talk about that. And they go,
how's your checkbook looking?
That's always part of it.
It's already on the roadmap. I already have it planned out.
And actually, that was a big selling point with some of the things I've been doing is the ability to say, you need this? Hey, here's our roadmap. Here's where it is. This
Expedite 10 Charlie. It is this amount of money.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if you have a good, compelling argument and you can show them why it's good, it's a lot easier to get the money. Now,
for sure.
That's a trick, is selling this story to the business, and it's easy to do that.
And the counter, which is also the risk if you don't.
Yes,
yeah.
and the risk is becoming more and more obvious, and with current geopolitical type things and some increased activities in certain sectors from certain nation states, it's becoming a lot more easy to sell that, saying, you know what, you're no longer this little company that no one thinks about. You are actually part of critical infrastructure, and the U.S. government is concerned about what's going on with you, and they're concerned because other governments are concerned with what you're doing.
Right.
And it's like I say, people are going to test your network.
Yes.
It's better.
Do you want the report?
Yeah, it's better to pay somebody to get the report rather than the freelance test that you find out about later.
Right.
And that's happening. You look at any kind of, anything with IOCs, and whenever anybody produces any IOCs and puts them out there, you start comparing that against your traffic, and you go,
crap,
son of a, and because it's like, that's on our network, and if it's not on our network, it's knocking on our perimeter. So, I think that's one of the big things is to actually get out there and do that information sharing and get those IOCs and not kind of live in that bubble, because there's so many organizations that don't want to share information and talk about their security posture. And obviously you've got to keep a few things close to your vest, but really getting out there talking about saying, hey, have you guys noticed an uptick in this? And somebody else goes,
yep.
Yeah, we thought it was a misconfigured router. And it's like, it's a misconfigured router that somebody configured for you, or something like that.
It's a misconfigured packet coming your way.
And that's one of the things is when you start looking at some of this anomalous behavior, it's like bad configuration that somebody pushed, or
trying to evade something.
Or, you're trying to evade is a threat actor. And that comes to kind of knowing what your network looks like on your baseline. And again, that goes back to monitoring and all these fundamentals, because I actually had a situation where we had a site, and somebody's like, "Is this an attack? What's going on? The network's flooded with stuff." And like, "What's it normally look like?" And they're like, "I don't know."
No idea.
And we get in there and we find out that it's just massive switch misconfiguration, just spanning tree gone
Right.
Spanning tree gone wild or something like that.
Yep.
But it was enough that we're looking at it and somebody was like, "Hey, is this actually an attack?" And we're like, "We don't know because we don't know what normal looks like."
Yeah,
And then
no heuristics.
Yeah, and then we get a network engineer in there who goes, "Yeah.
That's switching closet 3A. I know that one.
Yeah, well, he didn't, but when he get on there, he went, ooh." And so that's one of those things where you need to have that technical expertise as well to look at it and go, "Oh, that's not really a security problem right now, but man, if there was a security problem, we would never see it because of all of this configuration."
Too much noise.
Too much noise, and that really comes down to config management, those kind of things. It's cliche to say the basics. But,
it is. Yeah.
But
that's the reason they're still not done is they're hard.
Yeah, you look at the CIS implementation groups, and you look at that basic stuff, that IG1 level stuff.
Yep.
And so many orgs don't have that. They don't have inventory.
Right.
What lives on your network?
They might have a inventory,
but yeah,
not an accurate inventory.
They don't have that centralized inventory that's up to date that tells everything on the network. And you say, "What's on the network?" "I don't know. We run X tool, and it tells us." Does X tool cover all the networks?
Yeah.
"Oh no, there's this one that we've segmented off because it's got that XP SP3 whatever, and we got that VLAN and it's completely isolated." "What's going on that VLAN?" It's completely isolated. It's good.
It's good. I can remote into it though. Isolated.
Well, and that's one of the things is that finding that balance between isolating your high risk activities
and visibility
visibility, because we have to see what's going on those networks.
Right. And availability. When something goes bad, you got to help troubleshoot, fix. You need logs. You need.
Well, and again, logging is becoming just out of control just because of the size and the management, and so a lot of orgs aren't doing it. They're just like. They're collecting some logs, but they're not collecting enough logs. They're not actually running them through, or they just buy, say, can I say product names?
You can say whatever you want.
Awesome. They somebody at a certain vendor that starts with SPLA and ends in ONC, says, "Oh, we just get Splunk and we'll just run everything through it, and you'll be good." And
it is sure. It's just going to cost you a lot.
It's going to cost you a lot, and you've got to have that expertise in tune and do something with it. You can't just throw Splunk in there or any tool and just go, "We're good." And we see that a lot. You get a vendor that comes in and goes, "We have the magic product. Look at where we are in Gartner's magic quadrant." And so he goes, "Ooh."
Right.
And
but Splunk or anything, if you don't go and look at it and are these logs useful? Does this have impact? Are you just collecting a bunch of the same backup logs? There's a lot of times that you go in environments and you look at the logs and you're like, this would have zero use case for availability or an investigation. Why are you logging it? Yeah. Now, there are things that have high usefulness for availability or security incident. I do want those logs.
And a lot of times those are just noise in all of this other stuff, or you end up with so much of the stuff you're talking about, that routine, who cares that this backup did whatever, that they just end up turning off all the logging or rotating it super fast. And so it's like, hey,
I can look back 6 days.
yeah. It's like, hey, see this thing? This thing is bad. Can we go back and look at this for the last 2 months? And they're like, "Oh no, our logs fully rotate every 3 days." What? Wait, what?
Right.
And so putting that into some kind of semblance of order is essential. But again, that takes expertise and it takes
time,
constant care and attention. And it's just like so many enterprises, they need policy because whatever compliance.
Correct. Retention 1 year, 7 years, check.
Yeah. And so they get a policy. They have somebody come in. Somebody writes that policy. They stick it in a binder or on SharePoint or something, and they got a policy. And every year when the auditor says, "Hey, can I see your policy on data retention?" You go,
yeah.
And the auditor goes, "Nice." Or
even if they do a check, it's like they check one system as one part of the company that does comply, but not the whole org. Yeah.
Actually, with my current employer, we experienced that recently because we had an audit. Without getting into too many details, we had an audit that was perfectly within acceptable audit practices, and it looked okay. But the next year, we're like, hey, we actually want the auditors to look at all of this stuff so we can have a better view of the risk. And they looked at things that were not in the previous audit.
Right.
And the audit score, of course, went down a bit.
Sure, got ugly.
Yeah. And the response was, what the hell?
Yeah.
What did you guys do?
How did we get worse?
Yeah, exactly.
We were always worse.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same kind of thing. You've got your vulnerability management stuff, and Patch Tuesday rolls around, and suddenly all your vulnerability management scores go down.
Yeah.
How did this happen? A patch just came out. It's like, well, it's because the new vulnerability is there, and we haven't rolled out the patch yet.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things. Because everyone looks at those numbers and they want to keep
as low as possible.
Low,
no
high,
criticals.
whatever it goes to, they want to keep it that direction.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that when you introduce change, that those numbers change a lot. And so it's how you react to those numbers and kind of trends over time. But there's a big vulnerability that gets pushed. All your vulnerability databases have that in there. Suddenly, all your scores go to hell.
Right.
And it's like, what's happening? Well, we haven't rolled out a patch yet.
Right.
Because you haven't paid for automated patching.
Right. Or we're apprehensive to patch that fast until we see how the market reacts to this patch.
Yeah. Or you don't have a real testing environment or a staging environment or anything to actually test that, and so you're like,
do you ship it to prod? Yeah.
I don't always test my code, but when I do,
I use Microsoft's.
I do it in prod. Yeah. That meme, the testing my code in prod meme was. Something I experienced once in the past, so I feel that pain. In fact, the gentleman right over there, I had to give a case of Diet Coke because I tested some code in prod once and went to bed. And he
caused him some pain.
Yeah, he's the one who fixed it, and and I returned to my desk to find that meme on my monitor.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, good natured stuff. He still doesn't talk to me, but he did drink the Diet Coke, so we're even.
Got it. Do you have a handle?
I used the Nixers for so long, but I've been out of everything. So really, no. I mean, I've got RM Jorg on Twitter, but I don't tweet much. So
okay. What would you say that first one was?
That Nixers. That's the one that I used on the DC 801.
Was that assigned, given, earned, self-given?
That was actually a random generated text.
Random generated. You just went and just click, 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 like making a passphrase.
Yeah, totally. It was when DC 801 was first starting out, and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about these goofballs. Right?
Yeah, that's fair. Good call.
And so when they were starting the stuff on the subreddit, I was like, oh, okay, I need a username or whatever, and I'm like, whatever. So I'm like, random username, random word generator. Clicked a couple times. I'm like, I like that one because it's got some X's and Z's in it, and went with that.
Did you put any elite numbers in there?
No. When you've got enough X's and Z's, it's elite on its own.
It makes up for it. How many Z's make up for a number?
Just like 2.
2. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Because these kind of look like 2s, so and X is a Roman numeral 10. So I mean,
oh, you do have them. Got it.
Yeah. So everyone thinks it's an X. It's actually a 10.
It's just really hard to pronounce.
Yeah, exactly. No, so I mean, I really don't, haven't been doing a lot, so I've been kind of a little isolated, and
right.
So yeah, you can just call me Rob.
I do so.
Rob.
Hey, Rob. What is your InfoSec origin story? One day you might be computering or beeping, and then one day now you're in information security. What was that moment?
Oh, I mean, if you really want to get back to doing this, I mean, this goes back into the 90s when, kind of was trying to get games to do, the old PC games, like the old Microsoft flight sims, to do things they weren't supposed to. And so that was kind of, my getting into, kind of hacking and messing with stuff. And so I was always interested into that and that. And then in the late 90s, I had some interactions with some people who were a little more nefarious than, nothing too bad, but, kind of, script kiddie level stuff. And I thought that was interesting. But really when I started doing it in earnest as a career, it was actually when I was working for Novell and started working with their security products. Their netware-based firewall border manager, their reverse SSL proxy, iChain, and then getting into certificate management, their VPN stuff. IPX, SPX security in high demand right now. The recruiters are knocking on my door for that. But
I heard you have a Novell certificate from the late 90s.
But I had a master CNA. Actually, I had like 3 master CNEs, but yeah, they're not too marketable right now. But no, I mean that's where I really was doing InfoSec stuff like in earnest was around 2001, 2002,
Wow.
and then I spent some time at a startup, and then came back and went to I went to a startup where you did everything, right? Because it was like some security, some sysadmin, some support, some network engineering, suddenly you're doing product stuff because, well, no one's there to do products.
And you're good at it. Yeah.
And then after that, I ended up doing information security in a healthcare organization, doing a lot of identity and access management, a lot of stuff with secure reverse proxies, things like that. Went from there, as you know, I taught the master's program at UVU in cybersecurity, did that, and then kind of gone from there, and now I'm doing enterprise architecture, security architecture.
Awesome.
So not enterprise IT architecture because, oh man, can you imagine? Can you imagine spending all day going, this is how SAP's going to integrate?
Yeah.
And I like to say SAP instead of SAP because I like to pretend that
SAP.
I'm European.
And Salesforce. You got to make sure you integrate Salesforce.
And Salesforce, yeah. SAP is, and if you say it Salesforce, you sound very European.
Salesforce.
Salesforce.
I do have an embarrassing story that I probably shouldn't share, but you hit my my index in my brain on a pen test, and we had wrecked a lot of things, and we got to this one entity, and I couldn't get through a system because it was still running Novell.
Nice.
And I couldn't Google how to do it because it was pre that stuff being documented well or easy to find.
Nice, yeah.
I'm sure it was easily to wreck. I'm sure anybody could have done it who knew what they were doing. You probably could have done it just from a sysadmin standpoint in Novell. I did not get into that system because security through obscurity.
I mean that's really I mean I think some organizations still do that where their security plan is just lack of interoperability.
Right.
If you can't access us,
yeah, nobody knows how to use it, therefore it's secure.
Yeah, exactly. We still run Solaris. Good luck.
Right. Right.
My employer doesn't run Solaris that I know of. Maybe they do. God knows what's out there.
Future discovery.
Well, and that's the thing is you're always looking at what's on your network, and so many of these people are like, oh yeah, we know everything on the network. It's like, well, that's because you're a 10-year-old company. But when you are a 20, 30-year-old company that's acquired various other companies that are 10, 15, 20 years old over time, and everybody's been kind of doing their own stuff, and the due diligence was limited to business things rather than, IT assets. And you're just like, oh yeah, that looks good. You guys have a network? We got a network. They had to hook up, and you connect it, and then you get in there and go, what are you guys doing here?
I mean, I don't know if you know some of my history, but I do a lot of network threat hunting, and you're preaching to the choir on this. There's a lot of orgs that they seem like they have their ducks in the row and the things are all set, and you just put some network visibility tool in there, and you're like, what's this host? And they're like, that's not our host. And you're like, it's in your network. And like, we don't know about it. It's not in the EDR. It's not in the asset list. It's not in the, any other, DB of list of things. And you're like, well, it's infected and it's doing this. And I'm a big fan of some network visibility tool, if nothing more than it's the things you don't even know about.
I was going to say, I don't think I have ever, in any role where I've been dealing with any network of substantial size, where at some point there hasn't been a, hey, what's that?
Yeah.
And one employer actually had a situation where we found a server from an employee who had died 2 years previously, like a Atlassian or something like that set up on it. And it was kind of like, hey, what's this doing here? Like Jira or something. And it was like, oh, that was so-and-so's project. Oh, well, let's talk to so-and-so.
Awkward.
Yeah. And it's like, but okay, so why is this still running?
Right.
And
what's it doing?
Well, that's the thing is, right? And so this person was in charge of patching it, and that person is dead.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate and sad. But of course, me being a asshole security guy, I'm like, well, what was the plan for that though?
Right.
Yeah, people can't just die without having a plan.
Right.
So
somebody inherits something.
Yeah. Please, somebody know what's going on with this network.
The craziest one I had was I was teaching a threat hunting class to an org, and we just wrapped up, and I was telling them some things to look for: base 64, base 36, just common stuff like that. And one of the guys remote looks up a thing and he's like, what about this thing? And I'm like, yeah, that looks interesting. We start diving into it. HVAC system, fully compromised, SSH's on, FTP's on, it's doing all the things. It's talking to like 200 other hosts. But okay, that sounds like a cool story. But the problem was they couldn't figure out who owned any of it. They're now looking into switches. They're now like trying to figure out, and it doesn't exist. And they're saying like, this isn't ours. And I'm like, how is this not ours? We have a tap on it. I look up their ASNI, it's theirs. And anyway, to shorten that story, an entire building with over 200 hosts that we could see, the security team had no record of.
Oh. Now,
it just happened their egress was backhauled to another building, so they had a tap of this piece coming through.
Right.
But they were very well-defined postures, controls, but they had no endpoints on them. They didn't even know it existed.
Surprise.
Whole building. So hopefully, every org has a host or something like that. Hopefully it's not a whole building.
A whole building. And that's one of those things is, you occasionally get something where a service is running.
Right.
And sometimes you have like that mystery web service that everybody uses, but no one knows who actually owns it.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, this service has like, some risky, methods enabled on this web service. Who runs it? And they're like, I don't know. We just use it for RESTful stuff.
Right.
But how come it has delete and stuff enabled? I don't know. It works for our app. Our app doesn't use delete, so it's good. All right. So who owns it? Don't know. But it connects to this.
Right.
All right. But who's in charge of connecting it to that? Don't know. And then you find out that it was put together by some business unit that got spun off, absorbed, transferred. The one person who knew how to do it
long gone.
Yeah. Now has gone to another job or works on another thing, and they call him every 2 years to say, hey, can you restart this?
Yeah. What's your consulting fee to kick a service?
And so there's all of these like mystery things, and again, a lot of that goes back to harping on those basics. Change management, config management. Who's putting stuff on the network? Who's in charge of it? What do we do when it goes bad? And there's so many things that just are being ignored, especially when you start looking at like some of these big sexy things. You can we've got. We've got all this log management. We've got, endpoint. We've got EDR. We've got, all this stuff. And it's like, but where's your inventory? Where's your change management process?
Know your assets. Know your software.
Yeah. Who actually authorizes this? And then where do we find it? Because that's often the mystery is, where is this? And it turns out it's institutional knowledge that's in Teams or email or
Slack that's rolled off.
Slack or there's an Excel spreadsheet that's on a share somewhere that people update as they need.
And there's 6 versions of it, and this guy has one, and that one has another.
Exactly. And somebody cloned it because they
didn't have write access, so they copied it.
And then everyone started writing on that one because they saw it. And so I think that centralized, it comes down to governance, right? That's the word. But a lot of the tech people don't want to say governance because
no, that sounds businessy.
Oh God, policy.
GRE nonsense. Gross.
I just want to do my job. I don't need. But when you get down, and that works in smaller organizations. But again, when I was talking earlier about scale, you really need that governance to scale things.
Right.
And without having that there, it's the Wild West out there. And you find a lot of things where you've got people just doing stuff, right? And
all right, so we've talked shop probably longer than you probably wanted to. Let's pivot to a little personal.
All right.
Just real quick, and we'll end it out. What is something that people don't know about, Rob? What's your hobby? Like something that you really like to do that they can come and approach you and talk to you about?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually get that, that from people. Like, what do you like to do? And it's like, I work a lot, but no, right now, I've got 2 boys that are 10 and 13. Little social engineering fodder there. But no, it's doing dad stuff for me. Awesome. I've got other hobbies. I still like lock sport and things like that. But it's that dad stuff. And I've got one son that's really into robotics, and another one's just like, hey, Dad, can you teach me how to pick locks? And so for me, like the exciting hobby right now is kind of that knowledge transfer and giving that little
governance.
Yeah, oddly, it's funny because actually my 13-year-old son is all about business and stuff right now.
Awesome.
So he wants to be the next Steve Jobs. And so, like, if I talk to him about government and policy, he's like, ooh, policy.
You getting him a black sweater for Christmas?
Yeah, a little black turtleneck.
Yeah.
He made his own out of construction paper.
Did he really?
No, that would be
Oh
so
my
weird.
gosh, that would be amazing.
But this is a kid who gets excited. Like, he found out how to make charts in Excel, and he was like, ooh. And he's like,
Pivot tables? Let's go.
That's funny you mentioned that, because that's what I said to his mom, and I'm like, well, you think charts are awesome?
Yeah.
Wait till he gets to pivot tables. He's like, I don't even know what that is.
It is definitely easier than it used to be.
That's true. I mean, because that used to be like the Excel,
Yeah.
Macros holy grail, right?
Yeah.
Was
VBA scripts.
You know how to do pivot tables?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Now there's these GPT-3 sites that you can just type what you're trying to do, and it gives you the Excel formula. So much better.
But dad stuff is, I'm still, doing some of that the hacking stuff, but really a lot of that's just kind of moved on as I've been,
All right.
kid focused.
Last one, but it pivots to that. There is no more, money's not an object. You're done with the InfoSec and computers. We're retiring. What are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I'm traveling.
Traveling?
I'm traveling. Yeah, I'm going to go see
Any particular place? Like, what's your number one you want to go?
Number one, I want to go to Iceland, see the Northern
Iceland.
Lights, but like legit see the Northern Lights, which is one of those, hey, you may see something, you may not.
Yeah,
kind of things.
I did that in Alaska once.
And
it was kind of weak.
Yeah, so I want like the full on
But Iceland's got like volcanoes and glaciers.
You got Reykjavik and all that other stuff.
It looks amazing.
So I want to do that, and then I would really just like the freedom to go do stuff. So I think travel would be good. I'd like to explore the world a little bit more, but there's also a good chance I would just play a lot of Xbox.
Yeah.
So
you could be in Iceland playing Xbox.
Yeah. I mean, with the money no object, it would be I'm in my private jet with my Xbox.
With your Xbox around the Northern Lights.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Somebody pokes me and I open the window.
Yeah, cool.
Not bad.
Back to Madden.
Yeah. You got to finish this Forza playlist. Got to get that Lamborghini.
Right.
Already got 27 Lamborghinis in real life, but man, I need this digital one.
Yeah. Perfect.
So,
Rob, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me in the SAINTCON hallway.
Thank you.